Are U.S. Navy destroyers safe from an onslaught of Iranian anti-ship missiles and mosquito boats? Well, this is how the Iranian attack works. The attack opens with a classic swarm tactic. Dozens of small, lightning-fast speedboats converging on the U.S. Navy warship from all directions. The second stage escalates the threat with a coordinated barrage of anti-ship missiles and explosive drones. The core of this tactic is oversaturation. By throwing an overwhelming number of targets at the ship simultaneously, the goal is to overload the destroyer's defense systems in hopes that they will eventually fail to intercept every single threat. So how does a U.S. Navy destroyer actually counter these complex attacks? To handle the surface swarm, the Navy would deploy ship-based MH-60 Seahawk helicopters or call in allied Apache gunships to hunt down and neutralize the small boat fleet long before it gets within striking range. During Project Freedom Operation, two Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyers, the USS Truxtun and the USS Mason, transited the strait to escort U.S.-flagged merchant ships. In response to the U.S. presence in the blockaded waterway, Iranian forces launched an intense, sustained assault on the naval convoy. But how did this attack happen? The moment the USS Truxtun and USS Mason entered the kill zone, the horizon lit up. Iran didn't just probe the American defenses, they unleashed a synchronized, multi-domain barrage designed to completely overwhelm the destroyers and the merchant ships they were escorting. First came the swarm. The surface of the water churned as Iran's infamous mosquito fleet closed in. Dozens of heavily armed fast attack boats aggressively maneuvered to distract, harass, and split the attention of the American crews. Simultaneously, the airspace above the strait filled with incoming threats. Unmanned aerial vehicles saturated the sky, acting as the vanguard for the heavy hitters. But that's not it. It also fired a volley of anti-ship cruise and ballistic missiles fired from the Iranian coastline close to the Iranian Strait of Hormuz, locking onto the convoy. This was an Iranian textbook saturation attack strategy. Throw enough threats from enough directions all at once and hope something slips through the net. But how did the U.S. Navy fought back against these attacks? Deep inside the Truxtun and Mason, the Aegis combat systems went to work. The destroyers engaged the incoming missiles and drones with SM-2 missiles fired from the vertical launchers. These anti-air defense missiles will look on to the incoming P-15 anti-ship missile and hunt down and often use hit-to-kill technology, destroying the target with kinetic energy rather than explosives. But wait, the destroyers weren't fighting alone. Providing close air support, U.S. Army AH-64 Apaches and Navy MH-60 Seahawks dropped in to neutralize the surface threat. Acting as the fleet's eyes and teeth, the helicopters turned their chain guns and Hellfire missiles onto the swarming mosquito fleet. The moment the Iranian boats broke formation and charged the commercial ships, the helicopters dropped in. The Apache and Seahawk crews used their advanced electro-optical and infrared sensor suites to cut through the chaos, locking onto the heat signatures of the erratic speedboats darting across the water. Operating comfortably out of range of the speedboats' light weapons, the helicopters opened up. It was a clinical application of overwhelming firepower. The crews utilized a deadly combination of AGM-114 Hellfire missiles for pinpoint, devastating strikes, and their 30mm chain guns to literally tear the lightly armored hulls of the fast boats to shreds. Apart from speedboats, how does Iran take on the U.S. Navy, with its massive aircraft carriers and advanced destroyers? Well, Iran's strategy isn't to face the U.S. head-on. It is to rely on asymmetric warfare. Take this for example. These two civilian ships are sailing near an aircraft carrier. Everything looks completely normal. But then, with the press of a button, the shipping container doors opens up and out comes a missile. These are the self-made Iranian anti-ship missiles, which can still pack a punch. This is instantly followed by a swarm of low-flying drones and fast attack boats from within the cargo ships, and not to forget the small midget submarines. These submarines can launch torpedoes at the same time. In quick succession, it can pass through the carrier's strike group defense system and even achieve 10% impact. They might not sink the carrier, but they can damage it enough to make the waters too dangerous for the U.S. to operate in. So let's look at the 4 key tactics they would likely use. Tactic 1. First and perhaps most famous is the swarm. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy operates hundreds of small, fast attack craft armed with heavy machine guns, rockets, and anti-ship missiles. The tactic here is simple, but deadly. Instead of trying to fight a US destroyer one-on-one, which they would lose, they deployed dozens of small boats simultaneously from every direction. The goal is to overwhelm the US ship's defensive systems, like the phalanx, by presenting more targets than the ship can track and destroy at once. Moving to Tactic 2, mining the Strait. Next, we have the silent killer, mining the Strait of Hormuz. This is the world's most critical oil choke point. Iran maintains an inventory of thousands of naval mines, including smart mines that can listen for the specific acoustic signatures of enemy ships. In a conflict, Iran could use submarines, small boats, or even disguised civilian vessels to drop mines right into the shipping lanes. The goal here isn't just military, it's economic. This would deny the US Navy safe passage and immediately spike global oil prices, inflicting massive economic pain on the US and its allies. Here comes Tactic 3, the kill zone. Third is the geographic advantage, coastal missile batteries. The Iranian coastline is mountainous and rugged, perfect cover for mobile missile launchers. The regime also employs shoot-and-scoot tactics using truck-mounted cruise and ballistic missiles. They fire a missile and immediately move to a new hiding spot before the US can strike back. This effectively turns the Gulf into a kill zone, where US ships are under constant threat of fire from land with nowhere to hide. Tactic 4. We have the ambush threat, midget submarines. The Persian Gulf is actually quite shallow, which makes it difficult for massive US nuclear submarines to operate. However, it is perfect for Iran's fleet of diesel-electric mini-subs, like the Ghadar class. These small subs can sit silently on the seafloor, waiting for a target to pass overhead before firing torpedoes. It's a surprise ambush tactic designed to damage high-value assets, like carriers or destroyers, while remaining almost impossible to detect by sonar. These small but stealthy diesel-electric submarines, designed for operations in the shallow waters of the Persian Gulf, pose a significant threat to US aircraft carriers. The Ghadar-class submarines, which are difficult to detect due to their small size and low acoustic signature, could position themselves in strategic locations near key naval choke points, such as the Strait of Hormuz. Equipped with heavyweight torpedoes and capable of deploying naval mines, these submarines could launch surprise attacks on US aircraft carriers. By waiting in ambush near expected carrier movements, Ghadar-class submarines could fire a coordinated torpedo strike, targeting the hull and propulsion systems of US carriers. A successful torpedo strike on an aircraft carrier could disable its flight deck operations, significantly reducing the US Navy's ability to project air power in the region. Additionally, these submarines could lay underwater mines in critical sea lanes, forcing US warships into predetermined ambush zones where Iranian missile and drone attacks could follow up. Tactic 5. We can't ignore the aerial threat. This is drone warfare. Iran has invested heavily in becoming a drone superpower in the Middle East. In a conflict, they would use UAVs not just for surveillance, but as loitering munitions, essentially suicide drones. The tactic is to launch them in massive waves to crash into the sensitive radar dishes and flight decks of US ships. The goal is to blind the fleet's sensors and halt flight operations, leaving the ships vulnerable to missile attacks. Let's look at Tactic 6. The US fleet relies on ports in Bahrain and air cover from bases in Qatar to sustain the fight. Iran possesses the largest ballistic missile arsenal in the Middle East. Their strategy includes massive missile barrages targeting these static headquarters and logistical hubs. The goal isn't just to destroy buildings, but to deny the US Navy the fuel, ammo, and command support it needs to stay in the fight. If the ships have nowhere to dock, they can't stay in the Gulf. If you're looking to upgrade your digital defense system, you need to check out this military-grade VPN. Think of Surfshark VPN as your frontline defense. It scans and detects threats, alerting you to thousands of dangerous emails. Beyond that, it includes a robust antivirus software to shield your devices from viruses, malware, and tracking by ads, bots, or third parties. Finally, with Surfshark VPN, a single subscription covers not just you, but also your friends or even your entire city if you wanted. Go to our link surfshark.com/AITele. By buying through the promo link, you will get 4 extra months free, assured by a 30-day money-back guarantee. Iran's military strategy for targeting US air bases in the Middle East would likely rely on a coordinated, multi-domain approach. By combining its missile arsenal, drone capabilities, and proxy forces, Iran aims to overwhelm American defenses and inflict significant damage. Among the high-value targets, Iran would likely prioritize are Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, naval support activity NS at Bahrain, multiple U.S. military bases in Iraq, and Al Dhafra Air Base in the United Arab Emirates. This approach reflects Tehran's broader strategic objectives, deterring U.S. military intervention, retaliating decisively in the event of conflict, and asserting its influence across the region. One of the most probable targets in a direct confrontation is Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. As the largest U.S. military installation in the Middle East, it hosts around 8,000 American troops and serves as the regional headquarters for U.S. Central Command. The base plays a crucial role in supporting air operations across the region and is a central pillar of the U.S. military presence in the Gulf. To strike Al Udeid and similar bases, Iran could deploy ballistic missiles such as the Fateh-110, which has a range of about 300 kilometers, or the Qunan-1, capable of reaching up to 800 kilometers. If it uses a proximity fuse, it may detonate just above the surface, airburst, to maximize fragmentation and increase the affected area. Complete destruction of unarmored structures and lethal to unprotected personnel. Extreme overpressure, possibly 100 to 300 psi in this zone, will destroy hardened aircraft shelters, fuel tanks, and command posts if directly hit. Depending on where these missiles are launched from, they pose a credible threat to key U.S. installations across the Gulf. In Bahrain, the Naval Support Activity NS at base serves as the headquarters of the U.S. Naval Forces Central Command and the U.S. Fifth Fleet. With more than 9,000 American personnel stationed there, it is the only permanent U.S. naval shore base in the Middle East. Its port facilities are capable of accommodating aircraft carriers and amphibious ships, making it a vital maritime hub. Given NSA Bahrain's role, Iran may also target U.S. warships in port or operating in nearby waters. It possesses a highly developed arsenal of anti-ship cruise missiles, launched from coastal batteries or naval platforms, which can threaten U.S. naval superiority in the Persian Gulf. Iran may also exploit proxy forces in Yemen and pro-Iranian militias in Iraq to launch indirect attacks or stir instability within Bahrain itself. In Kuwait, the U.S. maintains a strong presence at Camp Arifshan and Ali al-Salem Air Base, which together host around 13,500 troops as of 2021. These facilities act as key operational and logistical hubs, particularly for U.S. missions in Iraq and the broader Gulf region. They also use the Soviet-era anti-ship missiles with solid booster and liquid fuel attached to it, produced during the Cold War, is employed for the attacking mission. When launched, the first stage booster fires off for 2 to 3 seconds, after which the second stage takes off. It searches for a target using analog radar. When locked and ready, it can destroy a ship using a hollow-shaped charged warhead. This has the potential to either destroy or sink a cargo ship if it hits at the right angle. Scenario 2. This involves the use of a Soviet-era missile that was re-engineered by the Iranians, converting it into an anti-ship missile. The converted SA-2 missile can be launched from within 45 kilometers or 28 miles from the target. Take, for example, the U.S. destroyers sailing through the Red Sea. When fired, they can travel at a speed of Mach 3.5. These actions create a psychological impact and disrupt trade routes. We make original videos from scratch and animated by humans, so please subscribe to not miss a beat.